Good evening then. So, oh dear.
Oops.
Little squiggle there, but never mind. Okay then. Right, so from photobombing to center stage. Excuse me. Right, where did I get this idea from? Well, basically, I've got a couple of photographs of Benedict Cumberbatch. I promised Aidan Hoca that I would somehow develop a presentation around Benedict Cumberbatch, and that's why. That's the only reason. Okay. No, joking. Seriously though, photobombing to center stage. Prospective teachers leading change in ELT. So, what I'm focusing on this evening, what I want to chat about this evening, is this idea of the role of prospective English, prospective teachers in general, but for us, prospective English teachers. Now, for years and years, for generations, prospective teachers have always been kind of, how can I say, grew up in the status quo, educated accordingly to teach to the same system that they were educated in, and sort of like a kind of a fabrication line. Teachers are kind of expected to go back into the system and to carry it on. Okay, just doing things that how things have been done for years and years and years without really thinking about it, that kind of thing. And the idea that was new teachers are kind of socialized into the system to carry the system on. Okay, and there's been a few studies that have said that teachers generally, the teaching profession attracts people who benefited from this system, enjoyed it, and would quite like to stay in it, so to speak. I mean, I remember myself anyway. Why am I teaching at a university? Because that's only what I really thought about, university. Okay, I booked my ticket to university, not beyond there, so I kind of stayed here in a way. So yeah, the teaching profession attracts people who, are happy with that status. Now things have changed a great deal. I mean, I don't want to go into that cliche again, but it's going to be a little bit unavoidable. For some time now, it's been going on, hasn't it, that things are changing. Things have got to be done differently. The old saying, we can't teach today's students as we taught them tomorrow. Those kind of sayings have been going on, for some time now. And there's always been this kind of resistance, hasn't it? But teacher, this is how I learnt. But that my teacher did this. Or when you go into teaching practice, or when you start teaching for the first few years, teachers will always say, that you'll try out these ideas for a couple of years, and then you'll soon get fed up and do, what we've been doing for years anyway. But the kind of situation we're in at the moment, that rather than prospective teachers just, going off the production line into the system again, prospective teachers now have a very important role in initiating change. Okay, so curricular change, change in methodology, change in philosophy. Prospective teachers now, rather than just entering into the system as it was, they've got more of a center stage role. Anyway, that's enough wittering on about that. I'll go on with the presentation. Where's Benedict Cumberbatch? Okay, so here we go. Okay, what is the current scene at the moment in English language teaching in Turkey then? So if you think yourself as a new teacher, you are just ready to burst on into this new scene that is the English language education in Turkey at the moment. Okay, but what is this current scene? At the moment, we've got the thing that we are teaching English. Okay, English as an international language is what the catchphrase is these days, how we look at English, what we think English is as a language. We've got here global skills. Now, I know these are called, we're probably more familiar with 21st century skills.
Life skills as well.
Yes, life skills, that kind of thing. But perhaps if we say 21st century skills, it sort of limits it to a particular time, doesn't it? and you know, the 21st century is not the 21st century for everybody. So I think this idea here, global skills, is more focusing on the idea of life skills that we need to work in this large community, whatever century we happen to be in. And also as well, this cool guy here with the sunglasses, he is the National Education Programme. So, okay,
Bono.
menacing there.
Yeah.
Chose him that's him in particular. Okay, so this is what we've got. This is our scenery at the moment. This is our context. Okay, and our new teachers are about to photobomb this scene. They're about to jump into it. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at these different each of these things in a little bit more detail. By the way, while I'm thinking about this, it is really difficult. It is very, very strange talking to what seems to be a wall in my teenage daughter's room, but yeah, no, I'll get over that. So here we go. Right. So here we go. By the way, this talk actually is based on one of the lessons that I do in teaching English language skills for my third year. So if there are some of my third year students here now, which I think there are, you'll be familiar with this. Okay, I like to give them this lesson both as a kind of background for what, you know, we're teaching language skills, but before we start teaching about listening and teaching speaking and everything, what is the context that we're teaching in? So this is one of my lessons from there actually. It's also aimed to be a kind of a motivating thing as well. That young teachers, young prospective teachers have this agency now to bring about change in their own context. So that's a little bit about that. So it isn't really all Benedict. Okay, right, let's have a look then at these global issues first of all. Now, when we look here, there's all sorts of things, and these are, if we have a look, first of all, this constantly developing teaching knowledge base. And I think that's very characteristic, isn't it? It's the more we research, the more we find out, the more information there is, the more theories are put forward, the more empirical data is collected, and the more things that we find out that of this about better ways of doing things. Okay, so 20 years ago, it wasn't that, you know, we're still able to teach the same thing pretty much year in, year out. However, it's just rapidly changing, and we're all part of this now, aren't we? If you're working in a university, you're part of that, the creation of this teaching knowledge base. So it's changing all the time. Okay, there's no way that we can get by on the knowledge that we got by on 20 years ago. Okay, global skills, as I mentioned before, thanks to Ferhat for showing me this resource. This is a very interesting resource. Global skills, what makes it, this particular view, a little bit different from 21st centuries in general. We've got, you know, 21st centuries, the 4 C's, creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, but also in global skills, they've included this self-regulation of emotions, I think, which is, I think, a very important thing there. Just trying to work out, there we go. So it's realized now that teachers have to look after themselves. Okay, we all have to look after ourselves. This idea of well-being, we have to be aware of our emotions and try and regulate them in such a way that we don't damage ourselves and we don't damage people around us. So regulation of emotions is now recognized as a global skill that we actually need. Okay, there was a while, I mean, Ferhat will also know this, isn't it? People were doing lots of things about teacher burnout. There was this big thing like, oh, teachers are burnt out, teacher stress, this kind of thing. But it's kind of now like, okay, we're burnt out, but what can we do about it? Okay, so it's a kind of an answer to that recognition that, you know, teaching is quite a stressful job. So look after yourselves. In relation to this, the constantly developing teaching knowledge base, we've also got rapidly changing educational systems. Okay, now it's not just in Turkey. I mean, we tend to think when we're in Turkey, we tend to think that, you know, everybody's just doing the same thing all the time, and it's just us who keep chopping and changing and doing things. But that's not the case. Okay, everywhere. If you look at reports from OECD or whatever, they mention in Spain they keep changing things. Everywhere there's all these different ideas, and that is because what we know about teaching and learning is changing. Okay, so I think I've been here in Turkey 25 years, and there was the 1998 reform, the 2006, wasn't it? And then the 2013, 2012, and then a few little changes to that, 2018. So even in that shorter period of time, I've witnessed quite a lot of change in education. We've also got increasingly diverse classrooms as well. Maybe even 5 years ago, when I'd be talking with my students who had graduated and become teachers, nobody would mention having students from Syria, for example. But now I'm sure there is some of my our old students who've graduated. I'm sure pretty much everyone has experience of teaching classrooms with a wide range of nationalities that we wouldn't have had maybe 5 years ago. Syrian students, students from Afghanistan. Okay, so that's a diversity that maybe we weren't ready for before. Okay, so diversity in terms of nationality, in terms of language, obviously in terms of culture as well. I mean, Syria is our neighboring country, but there's still a lot of different differences there in terms of culture. Okay, so that's one thing. We've also have lots of migration, and people have been moving because they want to. For example, Erasmus, isn't it? You might have, you know, your Erasmus students coming over and having interaction with Erasmus students, or that's at university. But mostly these days it's sort of imposed, isn't it? So actually, I think this is a great advantage for us as English language teachers. Maybe people, I've heard some of my students, some of my teachers saying, hocam bunlar Türkçe bilmiyor. Nasıl İngilizce öğreteyim? Türkçe bilmiyorlar. I said, well, that's better, isn't it? They don't know Turkish. It's great. Perfect. Okay, so, you know, let the Turkish teacher teach them. You take advantage of that situation and go on with English. Okay, so that's another thing we've got there. Not just in terms of nationality, but also in terms of ability levels, disabilities, physical disabilities, who are partially or completely blind, or maybe they have a hearing impairment, and you have to think about ways to get around that. Lots of our students taking community service lessons, for example, they've been working on a one-to-one basis with students who are visually impaired. So they have to think of ways to give English input to students who cannot benefit from that visual. Okay, so using kinesthetic things for example, touching things. Okay, being able to feel something. So that's a challenge as well. But I like to think of challenges as opportunities. Okay, a challenge is not a difficulty really. Okay, it's not easy, but for every challenge there is an opportunity. So I think this diversity is an opportunity for us. It's going to help us grow in a different way. Now, this is one of my favorite ones: parental demands. I'm a parent myself. I've got my children going through the national education system at the moment, and this can be the worst thing, can't it? Parents, oh God. I mean, gone are the days when, do you remember, how do you say it in Turkish? Eti sizin kemiği benim, isn't it? They bring their kids, leave them at the school gate and say, you just do whatever you're with them, and whatever's left, give it back to me, kind of thing. But parents are not like that anymore. Parents are well, I don't want to say less ignorant, okay, because sometimes with ignorant parents, it might be a lot easier because they do say, well, you're the teacher, you know what to do, just do it. But when you have parents like us who've had some kind of university education, and we've got some idea, especially this, if you think about, and this is the awful thing about teaching a foreign language, everybody somewhere has had an experience of learning English. And that experience of learning English kind of gives them the right to tell you how to do your job. Okay, so I'm sure you know better than I do. All the practicing teachers here will know a lot better than I do. Dealing with parents who have these really strange ideas about how languages are learned can be a little bit challenging, can't it? Where's the language laboratory, and why don't you get them to write everything, or all these sorts of things. So again, you've got to be careful about that. Okay, sometimes parents can be very helpful. So that's another thing. And parents these days are much more, can we say, invested in their children? If that's the right word, to be invested in their children. It's kind of, yeah, this is my child, I'm educating it, and you have got to, live up to my demands, kind of thing. So that can be a challenge, a real challenge. And finally, obviously, that I don't want to mention the name. You all know what it is. So the virus that shall not be named, again, has kind of flung us all into a situation where we just have to communicate and educate and entertain ourselves in a whole different way that we've not been used to yet. So that's a huge global issue. And I think this, in a way, has, if you look on the positive side of things, it has shook us up a little bit. It has made us start to think, well, where am I? What am I doing? How much do I know? How much more do I need to know? So that has been a kind of a shake-up for us, I think. So those are our global issues, some of them there. The next one I want to think about is English as an international language. Now, we hear all sorts of acronyms thrown around, don't we? English as an international language, English as a foreign language, English as a second language, English as an additional language, English as a lingua franca, whatever. There's all these sort of like acronyms going round. Now, there's all sorts of, there are scholars who know much more than I do about these things that I don't really want to step on their feet too much here. But I think as English teachers, what we need to realize is that the English language is no longer Mr. and Mrs. Brown having breakfast. Okay, it's never been that it's not been that for years, actually. But we've still got this kind of idea. English, one of the important things about being a teacher, your beliefs. Okay, what do you believe English is? What do you believe a language is? Okay, so what we have now, rather than a set of rules that need to be learned like a parrot and then reproduced perfectly, it's not that. It really is a means of communication. So what we've got here is English as an international language. If we look at a few of the issues here, that it's incredibly linguistically, functionally, and culturally diverse. Okay, very, very. The English language 20 years ago is completely different. Okay, it's enormous. Okay, it's just incredible. English, what we must remember that, okay, English is coming up for various reasons. It's the most prominent language, but it's not isolated. English exists with other languages as well, and its interaction with those languages. Okay, so that's why I've got this visual here. Okay, we've got all these all these languages are together. You can't pull one out and expect the other ones just to hang together. And this has kind of brought us on to the idea of the ownership of English. Now, there's all sorts of arguments about this. Does English belong to the English? Well, it doesn't just belong to the English anymore. I know there's arguments about this. I know Aydan Hoca has some ideas about this ownership business. But what I want, I'm not going into that philosophical aspect of that. What I want to point out here is that in the Turkish situation, for years and years and years, I'm sure you've heard it more than I have, biz neden İngilizce öğreniyoruz? Onlar Türkçe öğrensinler. Okay, so it's like İngilizce belongs to these İngilizler. Okay, it's like one people, one language, one people kind of thing. Biz, onlar. Okay, so, well, this is what I say to my, I might tell it, if you don't mind me telling a few stories here and there. I like telling stories. So a couple of years back, I was doing some teaching practice, taking some teaching practice students, but these were not, they weren't English language teachers. They were teachers of Turkish language and literature. Don't ask. It's something to do with its formation thinking. Okay, so it was very funny. I went to observe for the first time, went to this high school, and I was really hoping to sit at the back really quietly where nobody would see me, and nobody, I wouldn't attract any attention. I'd just sit there, observe, and then go. And the teacher of the class, he said, "Bak bugün misafirimiz var," diye. Okay, Amanda hocamız ta İngiltere'den gelmiş burada dedi. Ay Allah'ım, no. Okay, oh my God, no. Okay. And everybody, of course, is looking at you. And of course, some smart Alex says, peki, burada bir İngiliz ne işi var Türk Dili ve Edebiyatı dersinde? Yani haklı olarak çocuk. Yani ben dedim ki hani in Turkish, haklısınız. Bu yani bana sormayın. Yani yönetimi bir sorunu ama dedim. Ben Türkçe ikinci bir dil olarak öğrendim. Ben burada gayet bilirim. Ben yani anlatabilirse bana demek ki iyi anlatmış dedim. Yani bunun için ben çok becerilerim var. Ben yapabilirim. Üstelik dedim. Okay, this works in Turkish, not in English. I have to say it in Turkish. Üstelik dedim. Siz diyorsunuz ya hani onlar biz İngilizce öğreniyoruz, onlar Türkçe öğrensinler. Bakın dedim, ben buradayım. Ben Türkçe öğreniyorum. Siz hadi bakalım İngilizcenize devam edin diye. Okay. So, I mean, this is a common goal, isn't it? And this is a barrier. I mean, it's not a rational barrier. It's a very teenage, rebellious barrier. Okay, it's their language. Why am I learning it? But what we have now is that English really doesn't, it's sort of transcended national boundaries in a way. If you use English in any way, in any part of your life, then it's your language. It's one of your languages. Okay, so that's another way of looking. It's just a way of looking at the language, and I think that's really important. Because of this, and this is, I think, a good thing, obviously. All the statistics, you've seen those from the World English courses, haven't you? How many native speakers are there? How many non-native speakers are there? And you know that there are obviously many more non-native speakers of English than there are native speakers. So whereas maybe 20, 25 years ago, there was this expectation that an English teacher would be a native speaker, it's now no longer the case. And a certain level of English, obviously, you have to have a certain proficiency level of English, but it's those English language norms, they're not the same anymore. You don't have to speak like the Queen. Okay, I don't speak like the Queen, for heaven's sake, Arnie. She's the Queen. Okay, that's why they call it the Queen's English. It's her English, it's not ours. Okay, so this is, again, I think an advantage here. When I was taking my Delta many years ago, some years ago, obviously all of us taking that exam, we were English. Okay, we were native speakers. there was one Swedish lady, but she'd got her Cambridge proficiency, and then at that time it was the that was the kind of how can I say, the prerequisite to have Cambridge proficiency, and then you could take that. But now, you know, that CELTA, for example, is quite common for people to graduate from university and take CELTA. Okay, so this is really good, and you can go anywhere to teach English. Okay, so that's good. And finally, I think this brings us on to this idea: is English really a foreign language anymore? Anywhere? Can we really call it a foreign language? If you think about what's the definition of foreign language? Okay, if you remember, English is a second language, English is a foreign language. I remember when writing our MA, we had to be very careful. In Turkey, it's in EFL, not ESL. Okay, because obviously, yes, it's not used. It's the idea that it's not used outside of the classroom, isn't it? Like the most of the exposure to English would happen in the classroom with the teacher and any material that they brought. And outside the classroom, there would be no exposure, or very, very limited exposure. But that's, again, not the case anymore. As we saw last week with Sedat Hoca, we really do have the world at our fingertips, don't we? And that's an old saying that's probably a little bit of a premonition. We really do have the world at our fingertips. All students now, you know, they're much more exposed to English than they used to be. Okay, and in fact, what I've noticed as well when doing this lesson with my, you know, the course with my students, is that maybe 5-10 years ago, English, yes, French, German, maybe, if they'd learned it at high school. But now I ask my students, okay, what languages do you know? You know, do you have any knowledge of? Japanese, Korean, Spanish, Italian, Hindi. Somebody even said Hindi, the Hindu language. I'm like, oh, wow, how? I've got a friend from India, and we try and talk to each other in English and India. So, wow, gosh. So kind of related here. It's not, it's different. It's not the same years ago. Students are much more aware of this. Much more aware of these things. And I think at the end of the day, what we need to remember here, that if we think of English as an international language, our aim is to prepare students as competent users, okay? Not grammatical textbooks. We don't want them to memorize grammatical textbooks or, you know, dictionaries or anything, because the purpose is to connect with English users from all sorts of different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. That's what we're doing. And teaching English as discrete rules to be memorized and to have blanks filled in, that's not going to work anymore. Okay, it doesn't happen. So there we go. Anyway, let's have a look at these programs, because this is another thing that I spent a lesson talking about the programs with teaching English language skills. Why? This is, again, based on experience. And a few times we've had, you know, if you're thinking of doing an MA, keep your ears open. You'll get some hints from me. Okay, so when we have MA acceptance exams, the scientific interview part, there's a sort of a question we can ask. Well, what can you tell us about the approach of the current program, the English language program in state schools? It's grammar translation. Are you sure? Yes, it's grammar translation. So notice this a number of times. Lots of people, lots of teachers have got this idea that the state program is grammar translation. So we know very much it's not. Okay, so I sort of I made my little note here. I'm going to make sure that at least students who come through my classroom are going to know something about the program that you're going to teach. Now, this is something that you have to do for anyway, and not everybody's going to be teaching for the national education system. You're going to be teaching all over. You could be teaching in a university. I've got students teaching in China even, or in Azerbaijan, in Belgium. you can go anywhere and teach, but wherever you teach, you're going to have some kind of program, and that program is going to be, you know, based on some kind of philosophy. So it's a good idea to get to know it. So this communicative language teaching, everybody, ya bu yeni şeyler Türkiye'de olmaz ya. Değil mi? Yani çok yeni bu. Yani it's 50 years old. Yani tabii ki yani işime gelir böyle yeni demek ama yani it's not. Okay, so communicative language teaching, yeah, 1998 was when it's first introduced. In 2006, and again, Aydın Hoca will have a lot of first-hand knowledge about that. 2006 was the first time we got a theoretical framework and standards and teaching to particular age groups. And then we have the latest one, what we call 4+4+4. And what's key about that is that in this new program, it mentions English as an international language. It's based around the CEFR. It's aiming for communicative competence. We're teaching integrated skills and also global skills as well, even if they're not mentioned directly. Now, I give my students a little task to do. If I can show this to you. Şimdi Sedat Hoca'nın gözüne girmeye çalışacağım şimdi. Bak ödevimi yapıyorum bak hocam. Okay. At the moment, we're using Google because the whole of the email system has been, they bought this Google Suite thingy. So we use Google Drive, we use Google Meets, everything. So I'm using Classroom to organize my class content and everything. And this is, for example, what we did about a month ago. Okay, so here I get my flipped learning business by kind of blending, getting them to do things before class, before I come in. Okay, so I tell them here, first of all, get your copy. And this is really important because in the 1998 curriculum, 2006 curriculum, you couldn't find it. Yani öğretmenlere kızmamak lazım. Gerçekten ulaşması çok zor bir şey. Okay, we tried to find the 1998 one. Adnan Gülüzer Hoca sağ olsun. Sincan'a gitmiş, buradan çıkarmış. Burada bir belge bulmuş, bizi taratıp gönderdi. Yani 4-5 sayfalık bir şeydi. Ama now it's again at your fingertips. You can easily get it as a PDF. So I told them to do this little search activity. Okay, get your PDF, search for these words and phrases. Okay, obviously I've got grammar and translation first. I've chose these words because they're based around what I'm going to be teaching. Adolescent, teenagers, teens, communicative communication, that kind of thing, collaboration, collaborative, creative. Again, here, these are our 21st century skills, our global skills, and here, international, English as an international language. So that's our little homework. Ve şimdi öğrencilerimin kimliğini koruyarak, okay, this is what we get. And özellikle bunu yapıyorum. Okay, because you can do this now easily. Okay, grammar. Skill, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, focus. Okay. Did you find any other examples of grammar? No. Okay, good. What about translation? No match found. Good. Yani, I rest my case. Yani daha ne yapalım? Yani, this is a PDF. You're using the search thing. It cannot lie to you. I mean, I can take a piece of paper and put, you know, Tipex all over it, and yok. I'm a yok bir şey. Okay, so I say, can this program be based on grammar translation then? No. Okay. Then we go through. We don't need to look at these too much, but look here: adolescents, teenagers, and teens. Oh, there's all sorts of stuff about teaching adolescents. So this program is designed with adolescents in mind. Community communication, okay, communicative competence, good, okay. Action-oriented process. English is a vehicle for communication rather than a lesson to study. This is really important, okay. Collaboration. Okay, creative, etc., digital. Okay, so the program doesn't say 21st century skills, but it does have all these other aspects of it. Anyway, what I want to point out there is often we say that, you know, I'd love to try out these new things. That's what I noticed last week. It's kind of like this with Sedat Hoca'sı var. Yani çok kullanmak istedim ama benim durumda böyle mümkün değil. Okay. Right. Well, for one thing, and you know, and I'd love to try these new things, but the program tells me to teach grammar. Well, it doesn't. Okay, the program is not telling you to translate either, so you are free. Okay, all those the shackles of grammar translation, they're not there. Okay, so you know, the program wants you to do. Yani müdür gelirse niye bu kadar gürültü yapıyorsunuz öğrenciler geç? The program istiyor. Okay, that kind of thing, didn't we? Okay, so that I think is absolutely essential. To being a teacher it's all about being informed, isn't it? That's why you spend 4 years at university. It's not just enough to know English. Anybody, Hasan amca, bizim generic Hasan amcamız var. Hasan amca knows English. Just grab him off the street, put him in the class. He'll open the book and say, "Okay, exercise number 1, off you go." You know, you don't spend 4 years doing that just to do that. Okay, you have to be informed. You know, being informed is knowing what you're teaching and why you're teaching it. Okay, knowing what your program is. Okay, so I think that's really crucial. How are we doing? Bayılmıyorsunuz değil mi? Çok heyecanlanıyorum bazen. Okay. Right, let's go back to my sharing screen thingy. Okay, so yes, that's it. Know your program. It's all there. Yani state school eşittir grammar translation yok, o gidiyor. Okay. What's really encouraging now is that I noticed this for the first time this year when I asked how old my students are. Okay, and I asked when did they start high school. And this year, for the first time, I've got students who entered high school in 2014. So the new teachers coming in now have at least been through this program, or at least have been exposed to the material that has been developed around that program. That's a good promising. They have some idea of what we're expected to do. Okay, so what can we do sometimes? Exactly, you know, teachers then. So what your prospective teachers, what can you do? So here we go. We've got Gazi, J block, meşhur. Uludağ, B block, also meşhur in its own way. Yeah, what can we do? So again, as I say, I'm talking about prospective teachers, but this is pretty much for everything, for everyone. So we need to be informed. What does it being informed mean? Well, we sort of drum lots of things into you in 4 years at teacher education, don't we? We've got content knowledge, English. Your English proficiency needs to be, you know, you need to keep it, you know, finely tuned. You assume to have a certain level of English when you come into the faculty. But again, language is like a musical instrument, isn't it? It's up to us to be able to practice that and to make it better in a way. Okay, content knowledge. Together with that pedagogical knowledge, how to manage classrooms, isn't it? Classroom management, how to evaluate, measurement and evaluation. Then we have things like pedagogical content knowledge, how to teach English language skills, okay, how to teach young learners, how to write a lesson plan, that kind of thing. And this is crucially important for English teachers, general knowledge, because, you know, you have to know everything. Okay, just knowing English isn't enough. Because all the materials now, you can go from natural disasters to traditional Japanese cooking. Okay, you have to know everything, and you also have to be very aware that your students know everything as well. Benim öğrencilerim sushi bilmez. Öyle bir master's thesis for one of my students. She did an interview between, I'm not sure if she's here or not, Shukriye, she might be, but interviews with students, teachers and parents of 8th grade, students who were their reactions to the intercultural material in the 8th grade book. And those kids were really remembered this story about Japanese children having to clean their schools, and that really stuck in their mind there. And they thought, well, we asked them, would you like more knowledge? And said, yeah, we would love more. I mean, we all know sushi. We know sushi. We want to know more. Sushi's boring. But when we asked the teacher said, well, what's this sushi? Nobody knows. They don't even know about Japan. Yani benim çocuğum ne bilsin? Yani they do. They do. I mean, we are really at a stage now where students have a wider knowledge than teachers do, and also student teachers have a lot more knowledge than we do. So things have gone upside down a little bit. This is why I think it's very important that these new teachers are getting out there and leading this change. Okay, so as a teacher, as a new teacher, you need to be, keeping yourself up to date with all these things. As a practicing teacher, again, find out what's going on. So this brings into other things. So that's all this knowledge stuff. Those are things that we can give you in teacher education. But these other things here that kind of like side products or things that develop or positively or negatively, maybe as an indirect result of teacher education. For example, career motivation. Why do I want to be a teacher? Okay, why? Is it because I like children? Is it because I like languages? Is it because, what's the reason? Is it the feeling of preparing future generations? What is it? Or is it because it's a comfortable job, which it isn't? Okay, whatever. Is it, what's the motivation behind that? Why do you want to do that? And it's a good idea to think that. Another little clue here: if you ever go for an interview to be an instructor at a university, and this happens that we might ask you, okay, you've been working in a high school for X years. Why do you want to work at a university? Well, it's easier. It'll make my life easier. Okay. Wrong answer. Okay, so that's another thing as well. Don't. I mean, that might be one of your. It might be one of your motivations, but don't make it. Don't say it out loud. It's not. I mean, it doesn't look good if you say that. Okay, it is difficult. It's difficult to teach teenagers. It's difficult to teach in schools that are not very well resourced or not very well funded. It's difficult, but that's part of it. That's part of the challenge, isn't it? In a way. So you've got to think about, why do I want to do this job? You might have to deal a lot with anxiety. It's a very stressful job, teaching. Even now, isn't it? I mean, even much so now. I mean, I'm sure all of us here are suffering a certain level of anxiety, even the most laid back person, aren't we? Like, what's going on? Okay, I mean, personally speaking, for me, before, going into the classroom was my absolute favorite part of the job. That's why I like being there. I didn't like all the other, I don't like paperwork, I don't like official stuff, I don't like anything. I used to go into the classroom, close the door, and that's it. And now that's sort of like been taken away, that contact with students, that interaction. Okay, we have interaction still, but it can raise your anxiety levels, can't it? Am I doing my best? There's also this idea that, okay, we're online, but this is the idea that I've still got to do better. I've still got to be high performing in a way. And this, I think, can be a problem for all of us. And this is not just for pre-service, but also for, especially for practicing teachers. Anxiety, what can I do with that? Related to anxiety is this resilience, this idea of, how can I say, some kind of immunity to this anxiety, being able to face negative circumstances in a positive way, in a productive way, I should say, an adaptive way rather than a maladaptive way. Being able to stand up to challenges with minimum damage to yourself and those around you. And I think that's an increasingly necessary characteristic of teachers these days? How resilient are you? I mean, in Turkey, we don't really have a lot of teacher attrition, do we? Maybe in private schools, we might get a lot of turnover, but certainly in state schools, once you're in a state school, come what may, you still go on, don't you? It's not like maybe some other countries, but this again is important. Here, hopes about teaching. This is something that I've been doing a bit of work about. Hopes. Okay, I mean, this is, you know, how you know, sometimes they say that whatever you work on, whatever you study, then sen de tam tersi oluyor ya, bazen hani umut çalışıyorum ama umudum var mı kendim? Yani benim umudum var mı? Do I have any hope? And of course, yes. It's this, what are your hopes? Because hopes are not like being Pollyanna. Pollyanna is something different. Oh, la la la, everything's going to be fine. No, okay, it's not going to be fine, but there's, you know, there's a way we can get through this. So hopes are really important as well, and having concrete hopes that you can work towards. And I think this is important for our everyday life, is setting goals, because we can't work without goals, but setting achievable goals, maybe. I mean, this is one of certainly my things, is that I set my goals, but then I usually have high hopes of myself. I say, come on, you can do that. And then I know inside of me that, no, you're not going to be able to do that. And when you don't do it, then you feel, oh my God, I couldn't do it. So rather than doing that, just achievable goals. Today, I'm going to do this. I'm only going to do this. Okay. And then, okay, so that can help you a great deal as well. And all connected with this, and I'm sure you've all been seeing, there's a lot of, I mean, this was before the virus thingy, but it's coming out more, this well-being, the idea of looking after yourself. Okay, you can't give water out of an empty jug. Okay, if you want to give something, you yourself have to be healthy, you have to be well. Okay, so looking after yourself. One thing I noticed last year in the INGED conference, we had lots of visitors from all over the world, didn't we? Lots of speakers coming from working for different American missions in different countries. And what they're saying these days is, for example, the American embassy, when they're employing somebody and they're going to appoint somebody to a particular country, because they don't all go to nice places. And we had somebody who was teaching in Afghanistan last year who we met, and she would tell some horror stories about, you think, oh my God, oh my goodness, you know what, ours is nothing. So what the American embassy do when they're asking, when they're interviewing people to appoint to different places, they say, do you have a hobby? Okay, and that sounds like really sort of like A1 level English oral exam, but it's actually really important. They ask, what defines you other than your job? Do you have anything that defines you as a person other than your job? And that's really important, because they say, you know, sometimes as a teacher, it can be very lonely. It can be very difficult. You can get into a lot of stress. So you need to have some kind of outlet to help you, you know, to get rid of that stress, to help you. And that's really important. So, you know, definitely, it just struck me as interesting that the American embassy are actually asking that. They actually give importance to that. And it might even be a factor who they, when they choose somebody. Okay, so I think that's, so these things that we need to think about. Okay, the psychological aspect of that, and also really keeping your hopes up. We have to get through this. It's going to be difficult. We are going to get through this. It's going to, we're going to get better at online teaching. One day it can't be online 100% all the time. We will get back to seeing our students again. We will be teaching online, but teaching online also has a lot of advantages. And we can improve ourselves at that and become amazing blended learning teachers. Okay, so after all that, then, are you ready to take the lead then? So rather than photobombing from the back here we have him again. Are you ready to stand at the front of the scene and say, here I am, I'm going to take you there? Okay, so there we go. That's all I have to say today. If there's anything you'd like me to, expand upon or anything like that, I can do.
Well, thank you very much, Amanda Hocam. We really enjoyed it. However, these are not the photographs that you promised me. Please, come on. Now, there are certain things that I want to clarify. In fact, I want you to clarify if possible, because in the chat box, we had a short, brief discussion here, because when you said English is not it is not foreign anymore. It's everywhere. Some of my colleagues said that maybe we should name it as ESL, or someone said maybe EAL. And I said, jargon-wise, we should stick to EFL, jargon-wise. Can you please clarify what you mean? You were not referring to English being the second language for communication in Turkey, right?
No.
So could you please elaborate on that?
Of course. Yes. I mean, in terms of, obviously English as a second language is that if you go to living in Australia, New Zealand, England, the United Kingdom, America, then you will learn English as a second language, because a large part of your life will be spent using that language to get by. Obviously in Turkey, it's not a second language because English does not have that status. What I meant to say there by saying, is English still really a foreign language? Obviously, jargon-wise, yes, it is EFL in Turkey, okay, because it's not a second language, it's not an official language. But what I'm sort of like trying to poke a stick in there is a little to start making us. Yes, I mean, what we have now is a very different context than to what we used to have. Like, for example, when I came to Turkey 25 years ago, English was really a foreign language. And nobody had any, or very few people had very real exposure to any English, other than what they'd seen in their in their classrooms, in their books. You remember, even technology-wise, even a tape recorder would be very difficult to find, or hearing English would have been very, very difficult. Now, so that was a really foreign language. Okay, very foreign. Now, what we've got here, because of both of the change in the status of English, the rise of English, also technology as well, what we have is students can reach English much more than before. So 20 years ago, the teacher would be the main source and possibly the only source of that language. Okay. However, now it's not the case. In fact, probably the teacher is even the last source. Yeah. Okay, because I'm sure all of you will have some kind of TV series that you follow. Everybody, watching something on Netflix, streaming things on YouTube
videos.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
English is in. It's not as foreign as it used to be. I mean, in terms of jargon. I mean, what I'm not suggesting here is that we look for another jargon for this. I think it is better to say it is EFL, because how do you know certain things that the names change over time, don't it? It's EFL.
Yeah.
Okay, but what EFL means now is very, very different to what it meant 20 years ago.
Here, what we are saying is English is not alien anymore.
Right,
English is everywhere. So especially for teenagers, wherever they turn their head, they encounter something in English, and they love using English because it brings some charisma to their being. Every now and then they scatter some words around. They sound funny, but still.
Okay.
That's okay. That's okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong. In certain countries where there are a number of languages belonging to small groups of people, for example, in India, English is the second language, because when you go to a government office, because the government employees cannot learn all hundreds of different varieties of languages, they stick to one language, and that is English. Jargon-wise, that's why we say ESL, English as second language, and EFL in our situation where English has no official value, but it has a huge social value. So thank you very much for clarifying that. Another thing that I want to bring up is when you said, how are we going to teach English? These people do not even know. I love that term. Know Turkish. Don't you think that this is pure evidence that shows that grammar translation is in our blood, in our DNA?
Well, yes. I mean, this is why it's like my personal mission. I know that this is a problem. I mean, it's part of the collective consciousness now, isn't it? It's like it's been done for so many generations that it is part of your genetic makeup. Okay, it's like people used to ask me, for example, did you ever read Charles Darwin and the Theory of Evolution? And I said, no. Oh, why not? I said, I was brought up in England in the 1970s. I mean, it's part of us anyway. That's what we don't need to read it, to be that kind of thing. That's what things are. Okay, that's how we see the world, for example. When we go to this, yes, it is, and I think that is our biggest challenge at the moment. And that's my personal little mission here. As I said there, I think it's not getting us anywhere. Teaching English through, we've got to, this grammar translation, we have to think, first of all, what is grammar translation for? And this is, just think about it. What is it for? It's for teaching Latin and ancient Greek and ancient Sanskrit and all these dead languages. Now, English is far from dead. It's very much alive. Turkish is far from dead. It's very much alive. There's nothing dead about the languages here. Grammar translation implies that things are discrete and fixed, and they have some kind of direct, I mean, you know this, I don't need to say that, but it's kind of like a mindset now. We have to get over that. It's not. It says very clearly, again, there in the program, English is a means of communication. It's not just another lesson at school. We are not teaching English for mental gymnastics, okay, for the discipline of memorizing grammatical rules and then reproducing them. That's not what we're doing. We've got something very real here, and people need to use it to get, well, I think they need it now, they will need to use it in their lives. They don't, it's just very different. So we need to think about, how do we see language? What do we believe language is? And is it helping us? I mean, I think what the biggest problem at the moment is we've got this new program, but we've still got this idea that it's grammar translation, and tick, tick, tick, tick, tick. We've got to go through that. Yeah. That's why it's not.
And it's not new anymore, Amanda. It's not new anymore. I mean, the first one, the first copy came out in 2005. I mean, we are in 2020. It has been 15 years, for God's sake.
Right.
How can we call it new? But have you seen Sedat Hoca's comment? It says, I saw a post on Facebook yesterday. A teacher prepared worksheets for grades 4, 5, and 6. And pay attention, 4, 5, and 6. They are just up on the edge of being young learners and young teens. It was just based on grammar and vocabulary, which is translation. Black, siyah, red, kırmızı. And what was worse, other teachers appreciated the teacher's effort. Do you remember the talk I gave in Bolu? Yeah. And I attacked these teachers and their posts, and they burned me alive.
It's very medieval out there, Hocam.
Oh my God. I mean, They don't want criticism. They
Mm-mm.
don't want reflection, let alone criticism. I said, guys, you keep translating. Why can't you just stick to the phrase? The program says, teach cliches.
Mm-hmm.
Don't dissect phrases into smaller pieces. So if it's
Mm-hmm.
raise your hand, it's raise your hand. Don't teach raise your hand separately. See
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing? Black, siyah. Okay, now today is Black Friday, right?
Ah, apparently.
Yeah. Now you explain it to me. Hadi, come on. See, vocabulary
Right.
is not that easy to translate.
No.
So
No.
don't underestimate the complexity of language, for God's sake. Even
Right.
native speakers cannot come up with such clear descriptions, definitions, or words. Who do you
Right.
think you are to come up with black means siyah? Full stop.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
It
Oh,
doesn't.
for God's sake.
I mean, right.
Whatever. I think aman hocam, I'm losing it. I'm losing it.
It's
So,
okay.
hocam,
Okay.
if it is
Huh.
in our DNA, are you asking us to become mutants?
Well, yes, I am. I'm asking to expose yourselves to radiation and change that DNA. Because, I mean, the thing is, I mean, this is what I often think, okay, what's the alternative of not doing this? What's the alternative? Let's have a program then that is based on grammar translation. Okay, come on, okay, tamam, siz kazandınız, yapın, hadi bakalım. What's going to happen? Where's it going to go? Are we going to have lots of, we're not. It's not going to work. Okay, so and I mean, this is the thing as well, because you can't go against what you obviously it's very difficult. I mean, we're in the teacher education job. I don't believe that is true. I don't believe that will work. It's grammar translation. It's ancient. It's dead. And more importantly, the brain doesn't work in that way. What we need to realize is that learning is brain based. It's not language based. Learning is something that the brain does. Okay, and the brain doesn't learn by taking concrete, sort of abstract pieces of rules together and then that's a lot of cognitive load on the brain. It doesn't. The brain will throw it out as soon as possible because it's just taking up space. It's taking a lot of gigabytes there. You just want to get rid of them. I was quite lucky about a month ago or so to attend a seminar that Stephen Krashen was giving. One of Ali Erdoğan, one of my. Yes, he is.
Really?
He is. Yes.
He's
right.
Like
yes, he is.
He's like 100 years old or
right.
something. I don't know.
But this is it. But he's alive. But it's okay. He said, the brain does not learn by learning grammar. Grammar is something that these guys in the 18th century came up with, the men in wigs, okay, that time. They came up to describe grammar. The language had developed for centuries and centuries and centuries, and some people sat down and said, okay, how do we describe this? And in that particular point in time, some people sat down to describe this language or whatever, and came up with some rules to describe what they saw. But that's just a photo of what happened then. It's not, the human brain doesn't learn like that. Knowledge doesn't always translate into skills. And there's no point, and there's even less point these days to fill children's head up with grammar rules, because they can access them anytime they know them. They don't even, I mean, can I say, for example, my kids are sort of like technically, bilingual, obviously, but they take their English classes at school. And my son says, God, I hate grammar. He said, I hate sitting there and thinking if plus b. I said, well, I can use it, but I hate saying why, using these rules. Okay, yeah. Because it's not how the brain learns. And I think Stephen Krashen said, this is really important, teach as the brain learns. Teach the students. Okay, and whatever, even if grammar translation is in our DNA, it doesn't mean that we're learning it.
Okay.
It doesn't.
I definitely,
Yani.
you know me, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with you. Sedat Hocam keeps bombarding us with all these pessimistic remarks here. I hate you, Sedat Hocam. I hate you. I want to forget about these people because he says that group has 55,000 members. So
Oh,
I know that I'm a member of the minority group in Turkey. You are as well. So the majority is for that. Now, what you said is what you do is for prospective teachers.
mm-hmm.
Do you think that it is possible to adopt it to in-service programs?
Right,
For,
definitely.
if we want to inspire teachers, if we want to change their perspective, can we take this, whatever you do, this model, from the
Mm-hmm.
university level and implement it in-service training programs or development programs?
Well, okay, what I think, rather than Hani sort of take it and then cut and paste, I mean, what we've got here is, for example, the teaching practice context. Okay, so remember the title is that I need prospective teachers leading change. Okay, the traditional approach to teaching practice, as I said at the beginning, it's sort of like fabrication, production line. New teachers go into and start fitting in this system that goes on in the same way. And they socialize into that particular context. But what we have now is, because of all the reasons that I've listed, prospective teachers now are not the ones waiting to be shaped. Yes, they are waiting to be shaped in some way, but they have knowledge and skills that they can take to school environments and help to develop there. Help to sort of like, how can I say? It can encourage change within schools as well. It's a local level kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe
Obviously,
slowly, one by one, maybe one
slowly.
colleague,
Yes.
working with another, cooperating,
Right.
collaborating, changing
Yeah.
his point of view, and then maybe including another one. It's going to be a slow change. Am I right?
Yes. I mean, the thing is that like quick radical changes don't stay. They don't. And I think what we need is a lot of patience. Is where that you have to realize that this is not going to be everybody's going to think, yeah, this is a really great idea. It's a step by step by step. It might be one or two individuals, and very slowly over time that will change, and that sort of change is a lot more, how can I say, a lot more permanent, a lot more lasting or sustainable, rather than sort of like big kind of changes here. I mean, think about it. I mean, Turkey is a nation that has done this.
Yeah.
Nearly 100 years ago. I mean, good heavens, I stand in awe. Okay, from coming from a country whose school was there to educate factory workers. This was, and this has been done in this country already. Okay, you have the capacity to do this. So again, hope to do that. But yes, I think change is something that has to take time. It takes a lot of patience, which is not something
be painful.
Very, very painful.
Yeah,
it is painful.
okay.
But very slowly but surely, I'm sure. It's that thing, isn't it, where when you think about education, when you plant a tree, you're not aiming to sit under the tree yourself. You plant the tree so that your grandchildren can sit under the tree. I mean, that's the sort of thing that education is, because people change very slowly and people resist change a great deal.
Well, nowadays in our country, we plant the tree and someone comes and cut it down.
Right.
Well, whatever. We were not going to get into that.
No,
guys, are there any other questions? I cannot see any questions here. Nope. Shall I take some time for teacher wait time?
Right, wait time, you get longer responses, more.
I guess no other questions.
No.
Amanda Hocam, thank you very much. It was really a pleasure to listen to you, as always. As
Thank you.
always. I mean, we hope that slowly we will change, the new teachers will change the system, because this system, if it is a system, does not work. It has failed. It is failing. It will fail if we stick to it.
Right.
But definitely, if the new teachers take the center stage, then there is still hope.
I think so. I mean, I've got a lot of hope in the new generation of teachers. I really have. Seeing, I mean, how much more aware they are of what language is, more aware of the world. I've got a lot of hope. I hope
Very
so.
good. Yeah,
That's good.
I do too. There's nothing else that we can do. In fact,
No.
we hope, and then we try
Yes.
to inspire others. Right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's it. All
Well,
if we all make our own individual personal contributions, that's it. Rather than huge change, just think about the little changes that you can do. And if you know there's a lot more people like you doing those little changes become a big change.
yeah, yeah.
There we
Well,
go.
thank you again, Amanda Hocam. Thank you very much. Hope to listen to you again.
Thank you.
I have Sedat Hoca has already promised us to give us another session, so you can, I guess, promise us another session. Well, not soon, not soon.
Yes.
You can rest for a while, and then I will bother you. I will bug you.
Okay,
guys,
I'll come up with some good ideas. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And guys, thank you very much for joining the session. Sedat Hocam, thank you very much for helping me, saving my neck. Not to say the other parts of my body. Thanks a million, everyone. And hopefully I will find the video on my computer, and then I will post it on our Facebook, Inget Facebook page.
Okay.
Take good care of yourselves. Stay away from this virus. Stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.